Emma Harrison was 25 years old when she met herself at 80. It happened in a hospital waiting room on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon. An elderly woman sat down beside her, looked into her eyes, and said, "You're thinking about not showing up tomorrow, aren't you?" Emma had told no one about the job interview. No one knew she was planning to skip it out of fear. But this stranger knew. This stranger knew everything. And by the time their conversation ended, Emma would discover that some meetings are not coincidences. Some people are not strangers. And sometimes, the person who saves your life is you. This is the day everything changed. Emma Harrison sat in the waiting room of St. Mary's Hospital, staring at her phone. She wasn't there because she was sick. She was there because her anxiety had gotten so bad that she'd had a panic attack at work, and her boss had insisted she see someone. So here she was, waiting for a doctor who would probably prescribe pills and send her on her way. At 25, Emma's life looked perfect on paper. She had a college degree, a decent job in marketing, an apartment in the city, parents who loved her, friends who checked in. But inside, Emma felt like a fraud. She'd spent her entire life playing it safe, taking the practical major instead of the creative one she wanted, accepting the first job offer instead of holding out for something she actually cared about, dating men who were good on paper instead of waiting for someone who made her heart race. Every decision had been made from fear of failure, fear of disappointment, fear of being too much or not enough. And now, at 25, she felt like she'd already wasted her life. Tomorrow, she had an interview at a small creative agency, the kind of place she'd always dreamed of working, but Emma had already decided she wasn't going to show up. She'd tell them she was sick, make up an excuse, because the thought of putting herself out there, of trying for something she actually wanted and potentially failing, was more terrifying than staying exactly where she was. Better to never try than to try and fail, right? Emma checked her phone again. The doctor was running late. She sighed and leaned back in the uncomfortable waiting room chair. That's when the elderly woman sat down beside her. She was probably in her 80s. White hair pulled into a soft bun, kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. She wore a lavender cardigan and held a worn leather purse on her lap. Emma smiled politely and went back to her phone. "You're thinking about not showing up tomorrow, aren't you?" Emma's head snapped up. "I'm sorry." The elderly woman was looking at her with an expression Emma couldn't quite read. Not judgment. Something gentler. Understanding, maybe. Or sadness. "The interview," the woman continued, "at Fletcher and Associates, the creative agency. You're thinking about canceling." Emma's blood ran cold. How do you know about that?" "Because I know you, Emma." Hearing her name from this stranger's lips made Emma's skin prickle. She glanced around the waiting room. Was this some kind of scam? Was someone filming this? "I don't understand," Emma said carefully. "Do I know you?" "Not yet," the woman said with a small smile. "But you will. May I sit with you for a moment? I promise I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to help you." Emma should have gotten up, should have moved to a different seat, called security, something. But there was something in the woman's eyes, something familiar, though Emma couldn't place it. 5 minutes, Emma said. "Then I'm moving." The woman nodded. 5 minutes is all I need. She settled into the chair, arranging her purse on her lap, and looked at Emma with such profound tenderness that Emma felt tears prick her eyes for no reason she could name. "I'm going to tell you some things," the woman began, "and they're going to sound impossible. But I need you to listen, really listen, because what I tell you in the next 5 minutes will change your entire life." Emma's heart was pounding. "Who are you?" The woman smiled sadly. "I'm you, Emma. I'm you at 80 years old." Emma laughed. It came out sharp and nervous. That's not possible." "I know," the woman said. I said the same thing when it happened to me. When what happened to you, when I met myself, when I was your age, in this very hospital, in this very waiting room. The woman looked around, her eyes distant with memory. I was sitting right where you are, scared, anxious, about to make the biggest mistake of my life by not showing up to that interview. Emma's mouth went dry. This is insane. Is it? The woman turned back to her. Then how do I know about the interview? How do I know that you have a scar on your left shoulder from when you fell off your bike when you were 7? How do I know that you still sleep with the stuffed rabbit your grandmother gave you, even though you're embarrassed about it? How do I know that you write in a journal every night, but you've never shown anyone because you're afraid they'll think your thoughts are stupid? Emma couldn't breathe. Stop. How do I know? The woman continued gently, that the real reason you're in this hospital isn't a panic attack at all. It's because you're tired, Emma. You're tired of being afraid. And a small part of you is wondering if it might be easier to just stop. Tears were streaming down Emma's face now. Please stop. The woman reached out and took Emma's hand. Her skin was soft and wrinkled and warm. I'm not here to scare you, she said. I'm here to save you, the same way someone saved me when I was sitting in your seat. Emma looked up through her tears. What are you talking about? 55 years ago, the woman said, I was you, 25 years old, terrified of everything, and I met a woman in this waiting room who told me she was me at 80. I didn't believe her at first either, but she told me things, impossible things, and by the end of our conversation, I understood. Understood what? That we don't get many chances to change our story, but sometimes, when we need it most, the universe gives us a moment, a choice, a chance to see what could be. Emma shook her head. This doesn't make sense. It doesn't have to make sense, the woman said. It just has to be true, and it is true. I'm you, Emma. I'm who you become if you show up tomorrow, if you take the chance, if you stop living from fear and start living from courage. Tell me about your life, Emma whispered. If you're really me, tell me what happens. The woman smiled, and it was like watching sunrise break over water. I show up to that interview, she began, terrified, convinced I'm going to bomb it, but I go anyway. And you know what? I do bomb it. I stumble over my words. I forget half of what I wanted to say. I walk out thinking I've made a fool of myself. Emma's heart sank. See, I knew, but then, the woman continued, they call me 3 days later. They offer me the job, not because my interview was perfect, but because they could tell I was passionate. They could see something in me that I couldn't see in myself. They hire you, Emma breathed. They hire us, the woman corrected. I worked there for 7 years. I learn more than I ever learned in college. I find work I actually love, work that fills me up instead of draining me. And then what? And then I leave to start my own agency. It's small at first, just me and one other person working out of a tiny office. But it grows. And by the time I'm 40, I have a team of 20 people creating campaigns that actually matter, that help people, that make a difference. Emma was crying openly now. That's what I've always wanted. I know, the woman said softly. But here's what matters more than the career, Emma. Are you ready to hear it? Emma nodded. 2 years after I take that job, I meet someone. His name is James. He's a photographer working on one of our campaigns. He's funny and kind, and he sees me, the real me, and he isn't scared of what he finds. We get married when I'm 30. We have 2 children, a daughter and a son, and they grow up watching their mother do work she loves. And it teaches them that they can do the same. The woman's eyes were shining with tears now, too. My daughter becomes a teacher. She impacts thousands of young lives. My son becomes a nurse. He helps people on their hardest days. And I get to be their mother. I get to watch them become extraordinary humans. I get to hold my grandchildren, 5 of them, Emma, 5 beautiful, perfect grandchildren who call me Nana and make me laugh and remind me every day why I'm glad I showed up to that interview. Emma couldn't speak. Her chest was too full. But more than any of that, the woman said, I learned to stop being afraid. I learned that failure isn't the end of the world. It's just information. I learned that being vulnerable is actually being brave. I learned that the things I was most scared of, being seen, being judged, being inadequate, those fears were lies I told myself to stay small. She squeezed Emma's hand. I learned to take up space, to use my voice, to trust myself. And it's not perfect. I still have hard days. I still doubt myself sometimes. But I also have a life I'm proud of. A life I chose instead of a life that just happened to me. Emma wiped her eyes. Why are you telling me this? Why now? The woman's expression grew serious. Because I'm not the only possible future, Emma. I'm the future you get if you choose courage. But there's another version of you. One who doesn't show up tomorrow. What happens to her? She stays at the marketing job she hates. She convinces herself it's fine. That security matters more than passion. She marries someone safe who doesn't challenge her or inspire her. They're comfortable, but they're not happy. She never starts her own agency, never takes the risks, never discovers what she's truly capable of. The woman's voice grew quieter. She spends her whole life wondering, what if? She reaches 80 years old and looks back on a life that was fine, safe, comfortable, but not fully lived. And by then, it's too late to go back and choose differently. That's horrible, Emma whispered. It's not horrible, the woman said. It's just smaller than what you're meant for. And the tragedy isn't that she has a bad life. The tragedy is that she never discovers how good it could have been. Emma looked down at their joined hands. Young skin and old skin. Same person, separated by decades and choices. How is this possible? Emma asked. How are you here? I don't know, the woman admitted. When I was your age, I asked the same question. The woman who visited me at ADL, the first time, she didn't know either. All she said was that sometimes, when someone is standing at a crossroads, when the choice they make will determine everything that follows, they get a visitor, a glimpse of what could be. Has this happened to other people? I don't know. Maybe this is just for us. For women in our family who carry too much fear and need permission to be brave. Permission from who? The woman smiled. From ourselves. From the version of us who already walked the path and wants to make sure we don't miss it. Emma sat in silence, trying to process the impossible thing that was happening. Finally, she asked the question that scared her most. What if I show up tomorrow and it doesn't work out the way you're saying? What if I fail? Then you fail, the woman said simply. And then you get back up and you try something else. Failure isn't the opposite of success, Emma. It's part of it. Every successful person I know has failed more times than they can count. The difference is, they didn't let fear stop them from trying. She stood slowly, gathering her purse. I have to go now. My time here is almost up. Emma panicked. Wait, will I see you again? You see me every day, the woman said. In the mirror, in your choices, in every moment when you choose courage over fear. I'm always with you. I'm always cheering you on, because I am you. What if I'm not as brave as you think I am? The woman cupped Emma's face with one gentle hand. Sweetheart, I'm not brave because I was born that way. I'm brave because 55 years ago, I met myself in this waiting room, and she convinced me that I was worth fighting for, that my dreams mattered, that my life could be extraordinary if I just showed up. She leaned down and kissed Emma's forehead. Show up tomorrow, Emma. Show up scared. Show up imperfect. but show up, because 55 years from now, you'll want to come back to this moment and thank yourself for being brave. And then, just like that, she was gone. Emma looked around the waiting room. A nurse was calling someone's name. A couple was filling out paperwork. Everything was normal, except Emma was holding something in her hand that hadn't been there before. A business card, worn and yellowed with age. Emma Harrison, Creative Director Harrison and Associates on the back. In handwriting she recognized as her own, just older, were 5 words. I'm proud of you. Us Emma showed up to the interview. She was terrified. Her hands shook. She forgot half of what she wanted to say, but she showed up, and they hired her. Everything the woman said came true. Not perfectly, not exactly the same. Life never follows a script. But the important parts, the brave parts, all happened. Emma built a career she loved. She met James. They got married, had children, started a business, built a life that was messy and beautiful and full. And now, at 80 years old, Emma Harrison sits in the waiting room of St. Mary's Hospital, holding her worn leather purse, waiting for a young woman who is about to make the biggest decision of her life. The young woman walks in, anxious, scared, beautiful in her fear. Emma recognizes her immediately. Of course she does. She walks over and sits down beside her. You're thinking about not showing up tomorrow, aren't you? Emma begins gently. The young woman looks up, startled. I'm sorry. And Emma smiles, because she remembers this moment so clearly. This is how it starts. This is how we save ourselves. Let me tell you a story, Emma says, about the day everything changed. Somewhere, right now, a version of you in the future is looking back at this exact moment, and they're hoping, praying that you'll choose courage, that you'll show up, that you'll take the chance, that you'll stop letting fear write your story. What choice are you standing in front of today? What interview are you thinking about skipping? What dream are you too scared to chase? What love are you too afraid to reach for? Your future self is watching. Your future self is cheering you on. Your future self is saying, please, be brave. I promise it's worth it. Will you listen? If this story moved you, if you needed this reminder today, subscribe to The Day Everything Changed. Because every single day, you're writing the story your future self will look back on. Let's make it a good one. Hit that subscribe button. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, the bravest thing you can do is show up, even when you're scared. Your future self is counting on you. Don't let them down.